And then, almost as quickly as it started, that chapter ended too. The Patriots made the decision to move on. Officially, the explanation involves salary cap reasons, roster building, the normal cold business language teams use when parting ways with a veteran. But football insiders whispered that there was more to it than a simple number on a spreadsheet. Because at the exact same time all of this business was happening, Stefon Diggs' personal life was exploding into headlines that had nothing to do with football at all. His relationship with the celebrity Cardi B, once splashed across entertainment news as a glamorous, high-profile romance, fell apart in a very public, very messy way. Breakups happen every single day to every single kind of person, but when two famous people split, it doesn't stay private. It becomes a spectacle. Rumors, accusations, social media firestorms. Every gossip account with a following suddenly had an opinion about Stefon Diggs' personal life, and none of it had anything to do with his route running or his catch radius. But that wasn't even the heaviest part of the story. Diggs also found himself facing a serious legal situation. Felony charges. The kind of charges that can end a career before a verdict is ever reached, simply because of the shadow they cast. For months, his football future existed in a strange kind of limbo. Teams don't like uncertainty. Front offices don't like headlines. And no amount of talent can completely erase the hesitation that creeps in when a player's name is tied to a courtroom instead of a playbook. Then, after a short trial, the jury reached its decision. Not guilty. Cleared of the charges. Free to move forward with his life and his career. You might think that verdict would immediately clear the runway for teams to come calling. But football, like life, doesn't always move that fast. Even with the legal cloud lifted, plenty of teams stayed cautious. They watched. They waited. They wanted to see how the dust settled before making a commitment. And so, as June turned into July, and training camps loomed just weeks away, one of the most talented wide receivers in the entire NFL sat there. And signed. Available. A superstar with no team. Now, normally, a player of Diggs' caliber wouldn't last long on the open market. Talent like his usually gets scooped up within days, sometimes hours. But this situation was different, and everybody around the league knew it. Age was becoming a factor, with Diggs now in his 30s, a stage of a receiver's career where speed can start to fade just enough to matter. The injury history raised its own questions. And of course, there was the swirl of off-field drama that made some front offices nervous about locker room chemistry, media distractions, and public perception. So teams sat back. They watched. They calculated. And in the middle of that quiet, tense waiting game, one name kept surfacing over and over again in conversations, in rumors, in speculation from insiders who study these situations for a living. Dallas. Now, if you're not deeply plugged into the NFL rumor mill, you might be wondering why Dallas of all teams would even be in this conversation. Let's break it down piece by piece because the connections here run surprisingly deep. First, there's family. Stefon Diggs has a brother named Trevon Diggs, and Trevon has spent years as one of the most talked about cornerbacks in the entire league, wearing a Dallas Cowboys uniform. The two brothers have spoken publicly, more than once, about how much fun it would be to finally play together on the same NFL roster. Two brothers, one on offense, one on defense, both wearing the same star on their helmets. It's the kind of storyline that writes itself. It's the kind of moment that would make highlight shows explode with excitement. Football is a business, yes, but it's also deeply human, and the idea of two brothers finally sharing a locker room after years of being on opposite sidelines carries a kind of emotional pull that front offices can't completely ignore, even if it isn't the primary reason for any decision. Second, there's the coaching connection. Dallas currently has an offensive mind running their passing game, who happens to share serious history with Diggs. Years ago, during Diggs' explosive run in Buffalo, this very same coach worked closely with him, calling plays, building game plans, understanding exactly how to use his unique skill set to maximize damage on defenses. Familiarity matters enormously in professional sports. When a player already understands a coach's language, already trusts the system, already knows how to read the concepts being drawn up, the transition becomes so much smoother than starting completely from scratch with a stranger. That kind of built-in chemistry can be the difference between a rocky first month and an immediate impact. And third, maybe the most surprising piece of all, there's childhood loyalty. Long before Stefon Diggs ever put on an NFL uniform, long before draft boards and scouting reports and marquee matchups, He was just a kid who grew up rooting for the Dallas Cowboys. Childhood fandom might sound like a small sentimental detail buried underneath the business side of football, but history has shown it can genuinely tip decisions when players reach free agency. Some athletes chase the biggest contract without a second thought. Others, once they've already secured life-changing money earlier in their careers, start prioritizing something different. Legacy, meaning the chance to suit up for the team they used to imagine themselves playing for as a child, staring up at a television screen on a Sunday afternoon. Put those three pieces together: family, coaching, chemistry, and childhood dream, and suddenly Dallas doesn't look like a random guess pulled out of thin air. It looks like one of the most logical, emotionally compelling landing spots on the entire market. But here's where the story gets even more interesting, because logic and emotion are only part of the equation. The other part is roster reality, and Dallas's roster reality is anything but simple right now. At the very top of the Cowboys receiving group sits CeeDee Lamb, a player who has firmly established himself as one of the most dangerous, most consistent wide receivers anywhere in professional football. Season after season, he's produced at an elite level, racking up massive yardage totals even in years when the offense around him faced its own share of chaos. Lamb isn't just a good receiver. He's the unquestioned centerpiece, the alpha, the guy opposing defensive coordinators lose sleep over during game week preparation. Right alongside him is a receiver who's become one of the breakout stories of the entire league. Acquired through a bold, somewhat controversial trade, this second receiver spent his first season in Dallas absolutely torching opposing secondaries. Nearly 1,500 receiving yards, close to a dozen touchdowns, a first career Pro Bowl selection. It was the kind of season that instantly silences doubters and turns a trade acquisition into a franchise cornerstone. And now that same receiver finds himself in a tense contract standoff, sitting under the weight of a franchise tag, holding out, using every bit of leverage his incredible season earned him to push for a long-term deal that reflects his new status among the league's elite. So here's the picture. Dallas already has two dominant, headline-grabbing receivers. One is a proven superstar who's been elite for years. The other just had a career-defining Pro Bowl-caliber breakout season and is currently locked in a very public, very tense negotiation over his next contract. Into that exact situation, you're talking about potentially adding a third accomplished veteran receiver with a track record of 1,000-yard seasons, a receiver who, by his own recent public comments, believes he's still one of the best number 2 options in all of football. Some analysts around the league have pushed back hard against that idea. They point out that both of Dallas's current top 2 receivers statistically outproduced Diggs last season. They point out that this move might not even solve the exact roster hole Dallas needs filled the most. Every offense only has one football to distribute on any given play, and adding another mouth to feed doesn't automatically create more production. Sometimes it just creates more complicated conversations in the film room about who's getting the ball and why. But other analysts see something different. They see an offensive coordinator who thrives on having multiple explosive weapons to move around the field, stretching defenses horizontally and vertically at the same time. They see a quarterback who could benefit enormously from having a third reliable, veteran target to lean on in crucial moments, especially with a young receiving core otherwise still developing behind those top 2 names. And they see a locker room dynamic where a returning franchise star, currently sitting out during a contract dispute, might suddenly feel a jolt of urgency watching a new veteran arrive and start soaking up snaps that once belonged exclusively to him. That's the tension driving this entire storyline. It's not simply about whether Stefon Diggs can still play at a high level. Plenty of evidence suggests he absolutely still can. It's about chemistry, timing, and whether adding one more accomplished, opinionated, competitive personality into an already complicated receiver room creates lightning in a bottle, or creates a distraction nobody in that building actually needs heading into a season with enormous expectations. And make no mistake, the expectations in Dallas are enormous. This isn't a rebuilding franchise quietly hoping to stay competitive. This is one of the most scrutinized, most pressure-filled organizations in all of professional sports, a team that lives under a microscope every single week of the season, where owners speak publicly and often, where every roster decision gets dissected by millions of fans and analysts almost instantly. Adding Stefon Diggs to that environment wouldn't be a quiet transaction. It would be a spotlight moment, amplified by 24-hour sports media coverage, amplified by the built-in brother storyline, amplified by the childhood fandom angle, amplified by every single thread of this saga we've just walked through together. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond just one team's roster. Let's talk about the bigger picture. Let's talk about the NFC. The NFC, if you're not deeply familiar with how the conference breaks down, is loaded with contenders every single year. Multiple teams believe realistically that they have a legitimate shot at reaching the Super Bowl. And in a conference that competitive, even small roster upgrades can shift the balance of power in surprising ways. Adding a proven veteran playmaker, even in a complementary role, even as a true number 3 option, can be the difference between an offense that occasionally stalls out in crucial fourth quarter moments and an offense that always has one more answer waiting in reserve. Think about it from a defensive coordinator's perspective for a moment. If you're preparing a defensive game plan against Dallas, and you already have to account for one of the most dangerous number 1 receivers in football, and you already have to account for a breakout Pro Bowl talent on the opposite side, adding a third proven veteran threat into that equation makes your job exponentially harder. You can't double-team everyone. You can't bracket coverage every single dangerous target on the field simultaneously. Somebody at some point is going to be left in single coverage, and if that somebody happens to be a former All-Pro receiver with a legitimate chip on his shoulder trying to prove he's still elite, that's a terrifying matchup for opposing defenses to solve. That's the version of this story that has Cowboys fans excited. That's the version where adding Diggs doesn't just add a name, it adds a genuine weapon that makes the entire offense more explosive, more unpredictable, and significantly harder to defend across a full 16 or 17-week season. But there's another version of this story too, a version that's far less rosy, and it's important we talk about that honestly as well. In that version, Diggs arrives in Dallas already carrying the emotional weight of everything he's been through over the past year. A public breakup that dominated entertainment headlines. A courtroom battle that hung over his career like a storm cloud, even after he was cleared. A franchise cutting him loose after a genuinely productive season, sending a quiet but unmistakable message about how the organization viewed his overall value beyond just statistics. Add all of that emotional baggage to a locker room that already has its own internal drama simmering, thanks to a star receiver currently holding out during a tense contract dispute, and you have a recipe that could either produce something special or completely combust under the pressure of its own storylines. Football locker rooms are strange, delicate ecosystems. They run on trust, on shared sacrifice, on the belief that everybody in that room is pulling in exactly the same direction for exactly the same goal. Adding a player with a complicated recent history doesn't automatically break that trust, but it does test it. It forces everyone, coaches, teammates, front office executives, to have difficult conversations about roles, about touches, about who speaks up in big moments and who stays quiet. Some locker rooms handle that kind of test beautifully. They rally around a returning veteran, embrace the redemption story, and use it as fuel for a special season. Other locker rooms crack under exactly that same pressure, and what looked like a talent upgrade on paper turns into a slow-motion distraction that quietly drains momentum from an entire season. So which version happens in Dallas if this signing actually comes together? Right now, as of this very moment, nobody outside that building truly knows. And that's the honest truth buried underneath all the exciting speculation. As of the middle of July, with training camps just days away, Stefon Diggs remains unsigned. No contract has been finalized. No press conference has been held. No jersey number has been announced. This entire storyline, as thrilling and dramatic as it sounds, still exists in the world of rumors, reports, and educated speculation from insiders who study these situations closely, but don't control the final decision. Other teams remain in this conversation too, and it's worth remembering that before we get too far ahead of ourselves. Teams with obvious needs at receiver. Teams with quarterbacks who've worked with Diggs in the past and could benefit from reuniting that chemistry. Teams desperate for a proven veteran presence to stabilize a young, unproven receiving core. The market for Stefon Diggs is genuinely competitive, even with training camps looming, even with all the questions swirling around his recent off-field history. Talent, at the end of the day, still talks in the NFL, and Diggs still has plenty of it. But Dallas remains, by almost every account, the single most compelling storyline in this entire saga. The family connection with his brother, the coaching relationship built years ago in Buffalo, the childhood dream of wearing that star on his helmet, Every single piece fits together in a way that feels almost too perfectly written to be a coincidence, the kind of storyline a screenwriter might reject for being too on the nose, too dramatic, too neatly connected. And that's exactly why this story has captured so much attention across the football world right now. It's not just about wins and losses, about targets and touchdowns and yards per catch. It's about redemption. It's about family. It's about a man trying to rebuild his career and his public image at the exact same time, potentially doing it in the one uniform he dreamed about wearing since he was a child, sitting in front of a television, long before any of us knew his name. If Dallas makes this move, and there's no guarantee they will, the ripple effects would extend far beyond just one Sunday afternoon box score. It would immediately become one of the most talked about storylines of the entire season. Every single game Dallas plays would carry extra weight, extra scrutiny, extra cameras following every catch, every drop, every sideline reaction. Every time the ball doesn't go Diggs' way for a few plays in a row, speculation would erupt online about tension in the locker room. Every time he makes a highlight reel catch, the redemption narrative would explode across social media and sports shows within minutes. Pressure like that can break a player. It can also sometimes forge something unforgettable. Some of the greatest individual seasons in NFL history have come from players who were written off, doubted, cast aside, and then used every single ounce of that doubt as fuel to prove everyone wrong in the most spectacular way possible. Is Stefon Diggs capable of that kind of season, in that kind of pressure cooker environment, wearing that particular star on his helmet? The talent says yes. The history says it's complicated. And the only way anyone will truly know is if this deal actually happens, and then if it happens, we watch exactly how it unfolds once real football, real snaps, real live bullets start flying under the lights on Sunday afternoons. For Cowboys fans, the appeal here is obvious. This is a franchise that has gone through its own share of heartbreak in recent years. Agonizingly close playoff losses, painful roster decisions, off-seasons full of promise that somehow never quite translated into a deep postseason run. Adding a proven, explosive playmaker, even one carrying some risk, feels like exactly the kind of bold, aggressive move a fan base desperate for a championship wants to see from their front office. It signals ambition. It signals a willingness to take a calculated gamble in pursuit of something bigger than just another solid regular season. For rival fan bases across the NFC, the reaction is understandably very different. Watching an already stacked receiving core potentially add another proven veteran threat is exactly the kind of news that makes opposing coaching staffs groan during their off-season film study sessions. It's one more problem to solve, one more matchup nightmare to prepare for, one more reason why facing Dallas twice a year suddenly feels even more daunting than it already did. And for neutral football fans, the ones just watching from the outside without a rooting interest either way, this story offers something even more valuable than pure football analysis. It offers genuine, unpredictable drama. Will the brothers finally get to share a locker room after years of talking about it from opposite sidelines? Will old coaching chemistry translate into instant on-field success? Or will time and different circumstances make that old connection harder to recreate than everyone hopes? Will a childhood dream finally coming true provide exactly the emotional spark a talented but battle-tested veteran needs to rediscover his absolute best form? Or will the weight of everything that's happened over the past year, the public heartbreak, the courtroom battle, the release from his previous team, prove simply too heavy to overcome, even with all the right pieces theoretically falling into place? Nobody has those answers yet. Not the analysts breaking down every rumor on television. Not the insiders reporting the latest whispers from inside team facilities. Not even, quite possibly, Stefon Diggs himself, sitting somewhere right now, waiting for his phone to ring with the offer that finally ends this uncertain chapter of his career. What we do know is this: training camps are opening soon. Rosters are being finalized. Every single day that passes without a decision adds another layer of tension to a story that's already impossible to look away from. And when that decision finally comes, whenever it comes, wherever it lands, it's going to send a message throughout the entire league about where the balance of power might be shifting heading into a brand new season. If that decision is Dallas, if Stefon Diggs really does end up pulling on that star-studded helmet, sharing a locker room with his brother, running routes designed by a coach who once turned him into one of the most dominant receivers in football, chasing a childhood dream nearly 2 decades in the making, then every single team in the NFC had better start paying very close attention. because a receiving core that was already dangerous would suddenly become one of the most explosive, most difficult to defend units anywhere in professional football. And in a league where championships often come down to a handful of unpredictable game-changing plays in the biggest moments of the biggest games, having one more proven veteran capable of delivering exactly that kind of moment could be the difference between another heartbreaking near miss and a genuine run at the ultimate prize. For now, all anyone can do is watch, wait, and wonder. The story isn't finished. In some ways, it feels like it's only just beginning. And whatever happens next, whether Dallas makes the move, whether another team swoops in first, whether Stefon Diggs finds himself starting the season without a team at all, one thing is absolutely certain. This offseason storyline has already proven something powerful about the sport we love. Sometimes the biggest, most dramatic moments in football don't happen on a Sunday afternoon under bright stadium lights. Sometimes they happen quietly in July in conference rooms and phone calls and contract negotiations most fans never get to see directly, moments that nonetheless carry the power to completely reshape how an entire season, and possibly an entire conference race, ultimately unfolds. So keep your eyes open over the next few days. Keep watching for that headline, the one that could confirm everything we've just walked through together. Because if it comes, and it comes with that star on the helmet, the rest of the NFC won't just need to take notice. They'll need to start scrambling, because the balance of power in the conference could be shifting right before our eyes, faster than anyone outside that Dallas front office ever expected. And that right there is exactly why this story, more than almost any other rumor swirling around the league this offseason, deserves every single bit of attention it's currently getting. Not because it's confirmed, not because it's finished, but because of everything it represents: redemption, family, ambition, risk, and the simple, timeless power of a childhood dream that might, against every single odd stacked against it, finally be about to come true. Let's take a step back for a moment and really sit with the human side of this story, because it's easy to get lost in trade speculation and depth chart debates, and forget there's a real person at the center of all of it. Stefon Diggs isn't a video game character. You can simply plug into a new offense and expect instant results. He's a man in his 30s who has spent his entire adult life chasing greatness on a football field while the rest of his world, at times, felt like it was falling apart around him. Think about what the last year or two has actually looked like from his perspective. A relationship that once felt like a fairy tale, playing out under the brightest lights of celebrity culture, ending in a way that felt anything but glamorous. A legal battle that put his entire future, his freedom, his reputation on the line, forcing him to sit in a courtroom instead of a film room, waiting for 12 strangers to decide what happens next in his life. And then, even after being cleared, even after walking out of that courtroom a free man, watching the team he just delivered a bounce-back season for decide it was time to move on anyway. That's a lot for anyone to carry. Add the ordinary pressure of being a professional athlete, constantly evaluated, constantly compared, constantly reminded that your value is only as good as your last performance, and you start to understand why some people around the league have wondered aloud whether Diggs needs more than just a new contract right now. Maybe he needs stability. Maybe he needs a locker room that feels less like a business transaction and more like a homecoming. And if you're looking for a landing spot that could offer exactly that kind of emotional anchor, it's hard to find a better fit than a franchise he rooted for as a little kid, sharing a building with his own brother, working under a coach who already believes in him.